Well, good morning, everybody. It's right there. My name is Mike at Filmboy24, and today I'm going to do a video that I've wanted to do for a long time now, at least 6-ish months, maybe 5-6 months, and it's a total complete meltdown. Well, we won't do that, but we'll do a breakdown of this camera right here. It's a EUMIG C16 16mm movie camera. That's right, I've been wanting to do this video for a long time now. The story is, I got this camera on loan from a friend and subscriber, Mike. He sent it to me, I don't really remember, it was last year, I believe, in 2023. And it's a tricky little devil, this guy here. So I've been sort of just kind of playing with it off and on and trying to really sort it out. You know, kick its proverbial tires. Not that other thing. So that's why it took some time for me to finally put this video out. It's a kind of a complex little camera for what it is. There's some little isms with this camera that you're going to see here in just a minute. But without too much more of that, thank you, Mike, for loaning this to me. I'll get it back to you relatively soon, I promise. By the way, if you don't follow me right here on YouTube, please consider doing it. I have a live stream most every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and we have a lot of fun. We have an excellent little group of film folks, and we just chat film. Enough about that. The EUMIG C16, this comes a couple of different ways. It comes the way that you see right here in front of me, which is a fixed 25mm EUMIG lens. Let's get this out of the way. Right here, smack dab in the center, and I'm going to give you close-ups whenever possible. You'll get quite a few close-ups. It comes with this EUMIG, which is actually called a EUMIG wine. 25mm fixed lens. It's an f1.9, so it's right in the medium spectrum of fast and slow. And it's not a changeable lens, so it's stuck in there for good. You're stuck with it. This one comes with the turret, and these two lenses right here are EUMIC wide angle and telephoto lenses. They're just converter lenses. And we're going to get into these in just a second, but I'm going to run over some of what this camera does quickly. We're just going to kind of go over it, and then we'll get a little bit more detail. It's completely metal. Ugh. Everything on this camera, for the most part, is metal, and it's a bit heavy. It comes in at about 7.5 pounds, a little lower than 7.5 pounds, which is about 3.4 kilograms, if you keep track in kilograms. It has several different filming speeds, and to adjust the filming speeds of this camera, this particular camera anyway, there's a little dial right here at the bottom. Now, with the other model of C16, these buttons and dials might look a little bit different. But right here at the bottom is your frames per second. Now you have 16, 24, 32, 48, 64, and single frame, which I'll show you in a second, which is right in the back. And you simply rotate this little dial to your desired filming speeds, or frames per second. These cameras have 160-degree shutters. Well, at least this one does, or I know the C16s typically came with 160-degree shutters. And what that means is if you're going to shoot at 16 frames per second, you're going to want to use a shutter speed of about 1/36th of a second. If you're shooting at 24 frames per second, which is what I typically do, then you're going to use a shutter speed of about 1/54th of a second. You could probably get away with using 1/50th if you're going to meter it and your meter doesn't have 1/54th. You could use 1/50th, it's probably okay. 160, possibly. But you're going to be in that range. To set the ISO, this has a built-in light meter right here on top. This is your meter right here. And to set it properly, this is one of those things that's a little bit cool-ish. I really like this. Now, I have a lot of 16mm cameras, and none of them have this particular feature, which I enjoy. If you open the film compartment right here on the side, which is a 1/4 of a turn counterclockwise on this little dial, pop open the door, take out the top reel, which is actually where your feed spool goes. And right here on the top, underneath your feed spool reel, against this back plate, you're going to see right where you set your film's ISO. And you set the ISO because your meter inside has a fixed pin or needle that moves in your viewfinder, in your field of view. Now, as you rotate this dial right here, and you just use a screwdriver, and there's a little screw here, and as you rotate this little screw right there, your ISO settings rotate with it. Now, I shot this 50D. It's Vision 2, so it's a little older. I set my ISO on this camera at 32. And like I said, what that does is it moves this little needle pin that sticks down in your field of view, and it moves it left and right. When you're finished and you put your feed reel on top, there's no more accidentally messing with your ISO. It's not on the outside, which I kind of like. Now with that, what that does is it tells your camera, it bases it off of your filming speeds, and you have your exposure dial right here on the side of the camera. So when you're looking through your viewfinder, you will see that fixed needle on the bottom. There's a moving needle that moves with this dial on the side of your camera. So when both needles are aligned, you're good to go. It goes from f1.9 up to, I believe, well, we're going to find out, f22. f22 being the absolute smallest aperture opening possible with this camera. And one thing I do like is if you're using your left forefinger to press the shutter release, and you keep your hand on this side of the camera as you're filming, you can, especially if you're panning left and right, you can keep this finger on your aperture adjust here, and you can rotate it as you're filming, and it will open and close the lens diaphragm as you're filming. All right, enough about that. What you have to do, this is a non-reflex camera, and you settle down. This is a non-reflex camera, which simply means when you look through the viewfinder, you're not actually looking through the taking lens. You're looking through the viewfinder lens. It's what they call a parallax viewfinder system. Now, the issue with that, and this is one of those things I don't really care about this camera, and well, most non-reflex cameras, it's kind of can be tricky to get the right field of view. So the farther your subject is away from the camera, the easier it is to keep that subject right smack dab in the middle of this taking lens. The closer your subject is, my lens is pointing at the center of my hand, but when I'm looking through my viewfinder, I'm looking way up here. So what they have done, and this is one of those things that's a little bit tricky, and it kind of, I don't know, kind of tripped me up a couple of times. You have to remember every time that you change your subject distance, you have to remember to also change, right here on the side, your viewfinder settings. What this does is it moves your viewfinder kind of up and down at an angle a little bit as you turn this. I'm going to show you what it does. So as you turn it, it moves your field of view to match your subject's distance from the camera. Does that make any sense? I hope so. There's a yellow dot on the top, and there's a white and a green dot right there on the bottom. What that's for, the white dot is for when you are using your 25mm lens. Now the dial here, it's very difficult to explain, but the dial here has distances on it from 40 inches up to infinity. I'm sorry, from 12 inches all the way to infinity, and it starts in the white and the infinity is in the green. Well, your white and green is here on the bottom. So if you're using a 25mm lens and your subject is 20 feet away, you want to turn this dial to where it matches somewhere around 20 feet on the white and green dots right there. And in this case, it'll be in green. The number will be in green. If you're filming something close, like let's say 20 inches away from the film plane, you want to turn this, and then your 20 inches is going to be in white. Your number will be in white right here. But this stays the same. You just use the white and green for your 25mm lens. Whoo! Now, here's where this comes into play. You have a wide angle and telephoto lens adapters right here. And I can't remember which one was which, so let's just look through quickly. Okay, this is your telephoto top. And what you do, it's a little tricky again because there's a lot to remember when it comes to this lens system. And I forgot to tell you a minute ago, to focus this 25mm lens, there's a lever right here on the side, and it goes up and down. And that's focusing from 40 inches to infinity. Infinity being all the way to the bottom. So this tripped me up a little bit when I first started using this camera. I wasn't positive what you put this on, where your focus goes on your 25mm lens when you're using something like your telephoto adapter. Because the adapters themselves also have focus rings on them. So you would focus this adapter. Well, a little more research told me that you want to keep your 25mm lens at infinity at all times. If you're not using it, always keep the focus on infinity. Then you just focus your conversion lens and everything should theoretically be in focus. Now, if you look here right on top, this conversion lens, everything about it is yellow. It's got a yellow dot right there above it. It also changes your viewfinder lens right here to be able to match the field of view that you get with this. It changes your viewfinder lens. And let me see if I can do it. I'll give you a close-up if I can. But as you twist this, it rotates this little viewfinder lens out of the way. When you put your wide-angle lens, it moves the now green one, viewfinder lens, into your field of view, and your wide-angle converter lens now is in front of your 25mm, which hopefully is still set at infinity, because you can focus your wide angle independently as well. Now, the last thing I'll say on this is when you're using your, let's just use the green, because all of the wide angle attachment has the green, a little dot here. So you want to reference the green on your viewfinder. So whatever you set your subject distance at, if you're 20 feet away with your wide angle, you want to turn this dial till you get 20 feet in your green markings here on the green dot. If you are conversely using the telephoto lens, up top is your yellow dot for your viewfinder. You turn so that your yellow numbers align with the yellow dot based on how far your subject is from your film plane. Woo! Yeah, we got through that. Okay, so I mentioned a minute ago, single frame. There is a way to shoot single frame with this camera. This comes equipped with a cable release socket right here in the front and a cable release socket right there in the back. Now, if you're not familiar with cable release, this is a cable release. And that's exactly what it does. It releases your shutter. So if I were to, it's just got a little bit of, it's got male threads in the front, thread the male thread into the female thread right there, just like that. And now when you depress the little plunger, it releases your shutter. These come in, I think, up to about 40 inches in length. They do have the bulb ones, the air bulb ones that get to be like 10 feet long, but I don't think you got to really hold them down. These you don't. These have a lot of cable releases will have a little locking mechanism that you can turn. I don't think this one does. So for single frame, you just unscrew your cable release out of the front socket, screw it into the rear socket, move your screwdriver out of the way, and here we have single frame. Great for animation, or if you're super patient and you got one of those minds that can count seconds to a T, then it's good for time lapse. That's not me. Viewfinder. Diopter adjustment. For people like me that wear glasses, I can't see close up that well. You just have to adjust the diopter right here, or the diopter setting on the viewfinder. It's currently all the way out. For people like me, you want it as kind of as far out as you can if you can't see too well up close. And I can see just fine in there. Everybody's familiar with the diopter. I won't get into too much detail there. This has what's kind of cool. It's called like a power reserve, or it lets you know how much crank is left in your camera. So as you depress the shutter release, you see this, I think there's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 little windows right here on top. I'll give you a close-up. And as you pull the shutter release trigger in, this fills red. And when you get all the way to the end, you're out of spring. That just tells you need to wind your camera again. So as you wind your camera, which takes about 38 cranks to get it all the way completely wound, you wind your camera and these little windows fill up once again with white and all the red is gone. And as you film, they turn red again, which is kind of cool. Most spring-driven cameras don't have that feature. You just have to kind of guess or wind it all the time. This gives you a better understanding of how far you are into your wind. Footage counter. This has a footage counter right here on the side. It's both in feet and meters. And you wrench down this little thing here, this little flap, and you will turn it. And for me, I like to look at the feet, which is on the bottom, meter on the top, and you put it on 0. And when you adjust this to 0, and then you pull the trigger, you want to slap that back down, it's going to start creeping up, and when it gets to 100 or 50, however much film you have in there, well, you know you're pretty much done. The top of the camera here, I was curious about this, and then I had to experiment with it. What this is up top is just a little compartment that's held in place by one tiny little screw. And when we take this screw out, right here on top, it gives you instant access to your light meter. Now, I'm not going to mess with this. This one works just fine. But there's a knurled knob here, and you would unscrew the knurled knob and you can pull the light meter out. Now, you want to be careful when you do stuff like that. And that's to service it if things start going wonky with your exposure. I'm not well versed on servicing the light meter in this, so I leave it alone. Plus, it's not my camera. This one has a cool little handle right here on top. It also has this particular one. They don't all come with this, but Mike had one. I don't know if it came with it or he bought it separate, but I think it came with it. But it has this little stand and tripod mount. So that it has the 1/4-20 and a 3/8-16 mounts right here on the bottom. And to take this off, simply rotate this little lever, pop it off, put it back. This is just a base. It's like the flat base for the Bolexes. That was loud. But as you can see, without it, there's no tripod mount. This is better and fine and all good for handheld without this base, but there's not going to be any tripod use without it. So to snap it back in, quite simple. Line up the two little divots there, wrench it back on, and you're good to go. Now, I forgot to mention it does have this little dial on the side. There's a white dot right here that's on the body of the camera. The dial has a green and a red. Now, if you're on the green, if the green is aligned with the white, then your camera will work as it should. If it's on the red, it locks the camera. To unlock your camera, put it on the green, start your camera, turn it to the red, let go, and your camera will run until you flip it back over to the green. It's that simple. Now, I think I've gone over pretty much everything that this camera, or at least what I can remember, everything that this camera is capable of and how to do that. Now I want to show you how easy it can be to load the camera. I'm going to do a cutaway. I'm going to load the camera up. Then we're going to come right back and I'm going to show you just some quick clips of films that I shot with this camera. So here's loading this camera. All right, let's load this thing up. Here we go. you want to pop out your little lever, a quarter turn counterclockwise, open the film compartment door. Now you got to do all this in, you want to do it in dim light. It doesn't have to be completely dark, but you want to do it in dim light because these are daylight spools right here. And all that means is these are light proof. This black metal is light proof. So with this dummy roll of film that I have here, for example, the only thing that's going to be exposed would be this outside layer or maybe the one under it as well. But you do want to be conscious of doing it in at least dim light. So what you're going to need is your brand spanking new film right here. And for my purposes, this is old used up film, but you're going to want your brand new film and an empty take-up reel right here. This is your, after you set your ISO, this is going to be your feed side. This is your take-up side. You want your film to come off in the number 9 position like this, like so. You want to pull off, oh, I don't know, about a foot of film or so. Seat your feed reel. Then you want to take your film. Now this camera will accept double or single perf film because the main drive rollers only have 1 row of sprockets down there, which is a good thing. That's what you want for double or single perf. This happens to be double perf film. I don't know if you can see that. Yes, it's got 2 rows of perforations. And what you do with this black piece right here, you want to go around it and behind your feed roller here. First thing you want to do, I forgot, is you want to push out your loop formers. Push those completely out, and you want to seat this film behind that roller there. And it feels like it has caught on the sprockets there. You want to bring the film around your loop former, and you want to put it behind your pressure plate here. You see how your pressure plate moves out of the way? Move it out of the way. And you want to seat your film right behind it until the pressure plate snaps back into place. Come back around your loop former here. The same way we did up here. Go behind, and then you can feel it. You feel it hit the sprockets down there. And then your take-up reel is going to turn clockwise, just like your film is showing right here. So you want to feed it on right here. Spin, take it up. And you want to have a little wind on your camera before you start this, a little crank so you can start it and try it. That's all there is to it right here. You want to make sure you release both of your loop formers. So now you have the perfect little loops here. And to test it, and we've obviously moved this too fast. So let's go back down. You want to do it at around 16 frames per second. And there you have it. That's exactly how this film should run. I hope you can see that. That's all there is to it. Back to Mike. It's extremely simple to load. You just want to make sure you always depress back your loop formers, the guides, because if you don't, well, you can't close the lid anyway. So like I said just a minute ago, I did shot 3 rolls of film with this camera. They were all Vision stocks. It's not a camera that you want to run and gun with. Every single shot, and I mean every single shot, is one that you really have to think about before you press the shutter release, because you want to make sure your viewfinder is always oriented properly to match the distance of your subject, because if you don't, that's what happens. Yep, I was trying to film my wife walking, and as you can see, it was just not oriented properly. So you always want to make sure, do maybe a little checklist of everything. Make sure your 25mm lens, if you're using your wide angle or your tele, you want to make sure it's set to infinity, and then you want to focus the corresponding lens that's over the top of your 25mm. Like I say, there's some things you want to remember. You want to remember to set your dial inside the camera, your exposure needle, so it meets with the other fixed needle or pin, whatever you want to call it. You can't run, you can't just grab it and run and go. You have to think about your shots. Now with that, these are 2 rolls of film that I shot with this camera within the last couple months, and they're both Vision 2 50D. Now before I show them to you, I want to tell you or remind you, if you're new to my channel, I shoot, process, and scan all of my own movie film. It's been years since I've sent any movie film to a lab for any reason whatsoever. I just enjoy the process of doing it myself. Keep that in mind. When I process 100 feet of 16mm film, there's a lot of issues with it. I understand that. I'm okay with it. Well, I'd like it to get better, but keep that in mind. Everything that I do, I've done myself right here in my house. This is some footage. I'll try to put tele or wide or whatever it was, if I can remember the lenses that shot each shot, or maybe not, but here's some footage. Just some goofy footage, me messing around. I hope you enjoyed this little breakdown. I have to be honest, this isn't my favorite 16mm camera. I am so thankful that Mike sent this to me, because it's one that I love the look of it. And I've been wanting to experiment it with it for a long time. He stepped up, he sent it to me, and Mike, I'll be getting it back in the mail to you soon, I promise. With that, that's all I got. That's our EUMIG C16. If you enjoyed this video, I want you to please do me a favor. It's right here where I put things. Tap the like button for me. It's super simple. I mean, if I can do it, there's no doubt you can do it. If you think I've earned it, right there, not the camera, that. Subscribe so that you never miss another fun-filled, exciting, tasty little video like this. I don't know. I don't know where any of that comes from. But until the very next time that I see all of your stunning faces, especially yours, that's the one. I always say that's the one, and it almost never is. I'll see all of you on the very next go-around.